All right, good evening. Welcome to the May 9th Newmarket Planning Board meeting. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, couple of housekeeping things first. Jane Ford is excused. She's not going to be here tonight. So Glenn, we're going to appoint you to sit in for her this evening.
All right.
Next on the agenda is public comments. Are there any public comments for anything that's not on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll close the public comment at 7:02, 7:03. Next is review and approval of the April 11th minutes. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the April 11th minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? Motion made by Janice and seconded by Val. No discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Are those opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Then on to regular business. The first item is Maplewood and Vaughn Holding LLC, extension request, proposed industrial development, 2 Forbes Road, 169, 175, 177, and 181 Exeter Road, map R3, lots 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9-6. I will read a letter. We received a letter from Ty and Bond, addressed to Diane. Dear Ms. Hardy, on behalf of Maplewood and Vaughn Holding Company LLC, we are respectfully requesting a 6-month extension to meet the requirements of the site plan approval that was granted on November 15, 2016. Although the project has received conceptual approval from New Hampshire DOT, the formal driveway permit has not yet been issued. It is anticipated that the permit will be issued soon and a copy will be sent to the town once received to satisfy this requirement. If you have any questions or require more information, please don't hesitate to reach me by email at jmparashino@tybond.com or by phone. Very truly yours, Joseph
Perchino.
Perchino?
That's how I
PE,
say it.
project manager.
Is that the only thing outstanding on their conditions prior to the conditional approval?
They have to address some minor type things, but that was the major issue. We have to do a developer's agreement, we need to update it, there's things of that nature.
So I'll make
This
a-
was the big one.
I'll make a motion to approve the Maplewood and Vaughn Holding LLC request for extension for 6 months for the existing site plan approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Rosie. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Onward. Next is there will be a public hearing to amend Chapter 32 zoning and Appendix A subdivisions of the municipal code of the town of Newmarket, New Hampshire, in accordance with RSA 675:2, RSA 675:6, and RSA 675:7. The purposes of these amendments are to, 1, make modifications to Section 32 special use permits to allow assisted living and memory care unit. 2, add a new Article 5, Section 162 assisted living overlay district as an overlay district over a portion of the existing B1 and B2 zoning off of New Road. 3, modify and update Section 32-11 definitions in Article 6, signs. And 4, changes to Appendix A subdivisions to encourage landscape entrances to new subdivisions. So that is the purpose of the public hearing. With that, I'll open up the public hearing. We want to take one item at a time, walk through, what's the preference of the board? All right, so we'll take the first issue first, which is modifications to assisted, to special use permits to allow for assisted living and memory care unit. Diane, do you want to give us a quick update on, and for people,
Sure.
benefit people at home,
Sure.
what that entails?
Yes. What the planning board is recommending at this point and looking at is the addition of a new overlay district, an assisted living overlay district. And this would be approximately a 90 to 100 acre area off of New Road. And I have a map over there, and if you'll bear with me a minute, I'll go up and I'll give you some geographic references. for the members of the public who are here and also for the people watching from home. So the area we're talking about is in southern Newmarket. It's not far from the Newmarket-Newfields town line, which is here. And it's on the easterly side of the Pan Am Railway's right-of-way. And to give you some orientation, this area over here is where the existing Newmarket Industrial Park is at Route 108. And what's being proposed is an overlay district between 90 to 100 acres, and it would be an overlay to the existing zoning, which a portion of the area is shown in pink here, is currently zone B2, which is our business development zone. And the area here in blue, which is a B1 district, which also includes property across the railroad where the fitness center is near the Rockingham Junction. And just to, as far as the, there are actually two property owners rather, that would be affected by this. And the largest portion is land that's owned by the town of Newmarket. And the area includes on the northern part of the proposed overlay district approximately 39.5 acres of land that is owned by the town of Newmarket, the so-called Ham property. And also the town owns some property in the southern part, the so-called Wilson property, which is about 20 plus acres. And in the middle, there's land that's owned by Shearwater Investment Group, which includes Susan Conway, who was actually involved in the earlier development of the Newmarket Industrial Park. And with that, I'd like to go back and go over the changes, the specific changes that are being recommended to the zoning ordinance to reflect the new zoning.
Sure.
Or proposal.
Yep.
Okay, so the changes to zoning in section A. There's copies of the handout on the back table, along with the map. We made up probably 10 or 15 copies, so we made sure we had enough for everyone. So please feel free to grab one of those, and if you'd like to, go along with us in the changes. So the first thing is, what's being recommended is that there be an assisted living overlay district, and that would be an area within which assisted living facilities as well as memory care facilities for dementia and Alzheimer's patients would be allowed. And it would be allowed by a special use permit, which would be issued by the planning board. And the first change that you see in bullet 1 under A is to acknowledge that there will be special use permits under the section of the ordinance pertaining to that for assisted living and memory care units within that district only at this point. And we're recommending that we add a new section to our zoning ordinance, an assisted living overlay district. And the purpose of that is to allow the opportunity for low traffic impact development of that type within the overlay district. And it includes portions of the B1 and the B2. And I've listed in the changes the actual tax map references that would be included. I want to mention that the base map that we used for this presentation map is from the Town of Newmarket tax records. We have heard that there are some discrepancies in some of the boundaries, and we have forwarded this to our legal counsel for review, and we hope that they'll be getting back to us shortly with an opinion as to the accuracy, if you will, of those boundaries. But for purposes of tonight's meeting, we wanted to at least present to you the overall concept so that you could become familiar with it. And that information from the attorneys will be made available at a later meeting. So the definitions for assisted living are basically the definitions that are used by the state of New Hampshire through the Department of Health and Human Services as defined in RSA 161J2. And a skilled nursing facility is intended for persons who are in need of assistance with at least one daily personal life activity such as walking, bathing, eating, dressing, and other activities as determined by a recognized medical source. And these facilities would have to be licensed by the state of New Hampshire. And they would include also supportive personal care and health-related services beyond just room and board to adults who are residents but don't have a blood relation, if you will, with the owner of the property. So that's the first definition. The second is memory care. And these are skilled nursing facilities for persons with memory care, memory-related diagnoses such as dementia, Alzheimer's, and this is very highly skilled nursing personnel would be provided who would offer these specialized services on a 24-hour basis. And the concept is that that would be in a separate wing from the assisted living proposed project as proposed. So that basically provides the definition for the uses that would be allowed within the zone. And in paragraph D, again, we're talking about assisted living, memory care units, and accessory uses related. We are not talking about housing for individuals over age 55 who are, living independently, or even those who would need some kind of independent care services. So this is a very, very highly specialized type of housing under this broad category. In the next paragraph, paragraph E, there's been some development standards established. We'd be looking at minimum lot size of 20 acres, a road setback from new road, it would be of at least 100 feet, and there'd be an overall development cap of 75 units within the entire overlay district area, which, as I indicated earlier, is between 90 and 100 acres. There would be a development review process as part of the special use permit that would be issued, and these projects would have to comply with all of the town's subdivision regulations and site review regulations. And the idea is that these projects would not be built on a phased basis, but at one time. And the rest of the requirements pertain to, changes. Would have to go back to the planning board. The permit would be good for a period of 2 years. And the special use permit would be subject to all the public hearing requirements, notification of abutter requirements that are required for our subdivisions and site reviews as set forth by state law. That is the, sort of in a nutshell, the overview of the assisted living / memory impaired services. And I guess, would we want to go through each one item by item
Yes.
before we go on to the next
Yes,
one?
absolutely.
Okay, so with that, I
So does
guess,
anybody in the public have any comments, questions, concerns relative to this section of the proposed changes? Could you please come up to the podium, sir? Please just give us your name for the record, please.
My name is John Terlizzi. And the 75 unit maximum, is that per 20 acre lot or
total.
total?
First come, first serve.
Anybody else? Please come up here, ma'am.
Claudia Batcher. My first question, you'll hear from me again, I'm sure. My first question would be, you're stating 75 units, correct? On Route 152, the units up that way, I believe, are 57 units?
That could be, I'd have to confirm the number for you, but it sounds about right.
Why would you need 100 acres on 75 units that can be built on 20?
I think what we're, and if
Go
I
ahead.
may speak, just that
Is
we want to
this
make
phase
sure
one
that
of
there's,
this, or is it gonna be
no,
more?
this is, it's a one, it's not a
Okay.
phased development. The intent is to provide extensive buffers around the property, and there is a buffer requirement of 75 feet. Also, you note that the buildings would have to be 100 feet off a new road, and the idea being that it would be, try to make it as compatible as possible with the character of the area.
Has the land been surveyed by the town?
The town hasn't surveyed,
Is-
to my knowledge.
To my knowledge, there are survey plans of some of those properties. I don't believe the town has ever surveyed those properties. Like Diane said, the outline there is basically off of the tax maps. We know already that where the 82 is on that plan, or it says B2, I'm sorry, I can't see.
There's a dotted line that I drew in.
There, the deed says 39 acres, the plan says 31 acres, there's a discrepancy, and we will have lawyers get to the bottom of which is accurate. But I don't believe there's been a full
Particular map
survey.
is not it.
Correct.
This
Correct.
is not a survey map.
Correct.
This is a
Correct.
tax map, and it's not a legal
Correct.
description.
So I just wondered
And-
if you were going to have it surveyed. You know, you need to know where the land lines are.
Whoever
If you're going
would
to do
develop
it.
that would have to have that surveyed, absolutely.
Okay. Has there been a traffic study done?
No.
of the road?
Of this proposed use, I don't believe there has been. And again, that would be something that if a project came before the planning board for a special use permit, that the planning board could, if they want to, ask that developer to provide a traffic study. But there's nothing done at this point this is just planning for the future.
I might mention that under the town's site review regulations, if a project involves more than 20 units, the developer is required to have a detailed traffic study done by a professional traffic engineer.
That's good to know, thank you. Also, I'm not looking at very many of you that I really recognize. Janice might remember, Valerie might remember. I don't think Roseanne would, I don't know any of you. So, back in 1980, that particular bridge on New Road, the wooden bridge on New Road, they had a big argument between B&M Railroad and the town of Newmarket about that bridge. The bridge was subsequently taken down. And my property, if you want me to put, this is not to scale, and they have it wrong right here. My property isn't there, it's right here.
Okay.
Okay.
At that point in 1980, my father had a very bad heart attack. Bridge was closed. Only way around was all the way, almost 2 miles down New Road, and come out by Person and Kid, where it was. And then go to Exeter Hospital, 2 miles out. Luckily, my father at that time didn't die from a heart attack. But you wonder how many other people were ill and had to take the long way around. My point to this is that particular bridge does not sustain a lot of traffic. It cannot. Yet, day by day, I see trucks that are over 26,000 pounds.
No.
Or it's.
She's
I
not being
believe 2
recorded.
times 16,000 pounds.
Hold on 1 minute, ma'am.
Yeah.
What, is there, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I'm sorry.
The speaker's
I don't
not
know
working.
what's
Microphone.
currently what's going on, but this mic isn't really getting anything.
You wanna
Can
swap
switch
out
it over with
mics?
one of these?
We can,
I don't know how the wire.
stand next. This one's not.
But
yeah, just come on up here.
Do you have your phone again that we can record this?
There was an issue with the speaker, the mic for the public comment yesterday as well, but it was downstairs, so I don't know.
working?
Yeah, you guys are all good.
So
Good.
should they stand here? No, they should set your speaker up in front.
Yeah.
It will reach.
Yeah.
Why don't you take
I'm
this?
sorry.
Whoops.
I don't know.
Wait a minute.
Oh, mine's all stuck.
Can you bring it through? It won't go through. No, it won't go through.
I'll stand here, I'm not afraid of you.
You should be of her.
It won't go through.
Sorry.
They're moving you.
I'm going through.
You're coming closer.
We're gonna put you in the chair seat.
You're gonna know who we
It's
are.
all yours.
Okay.
Can we just pull like a table over or something?
Yeah, let me,
Hold this table for you.
Yeah, could you, please? Yeah, can you reach it?
We got something going here.
No, because we hit the tree.
Perfect.
all right, do we, she went back downstairs, we should make sure that that's working.
She went back downstairs.
Okay, Holly, is it working? Call upstairs if it isn't working, please.
Hillary? Okay.
Hillary.
All right,
Thank you.
yeah, let's, find out.
Down,
I don't know if we have
The
a,
number is right there on the bottom of the phone.
Now you're gonna start all over.
No, I'm not. But I have a long ways to go, so get comfortable.
All right, thank you.
Because I have some history to
is it working, Glenn?
bring
It's
to you.
working.
All right, excellent.
Okay,
Thank you.
so that particular bridge we were talking about on New Road is a wooden bridge, cannot sustain over 18,000 pounds supposedly. Yet time after time, there are trucks that go over that are well over 18,000, maybe 26,000 or more. Okay, just a point for you to keep in your mind here. And I don't know if B&M still owns the bridge or if Newmarket took it over, or I don't know. There
believe
was
it's
a
owned by
big
Pan Am.
to-do over that bridge with the B&M Railroad. Next. I'll take you back to the fall of 1988. My husband at the time was Lester Heath. We owned the property on New Road. My parents owned it first. My father built the house before it was done. He passed away. My mother and father had life tenancy in that property. My mother died 3 years ago. I still get a name on the tax bill, but that's okay. I was home one day, and a bulldozer came to the side of my property. If you're looking at the property, it would be on the left side. Started dozing in a road right next to my stone wall. No buffer. They proceeded to, by the time I called someone, okay, they had gone quite a ways up, tearing down the large trees, taking the topsoil off, and I called Arthur Beauchesne at the time, and he was the selectman. Arthur came and put a cease and desist on Afton Realty Trust, a.k.a. Susan Conway, who is now, I believe you said, Sweetwater?
It's
It's a
Shearwater,
Shearwater.
but it's
Okay,
Susan
whatever.
Conway's outfit.
Same people,
Yeah.
different name. I have an agreement in my hand that I signed with my ex-husband back in 1988 with Afton Realty Trust. And it was to become a part of the planning board minutes at that time. I don't know if it ever did, but I trusted that it would. Susan Conway came to my house that particular evening with a bottle of wine and sat down with my husband and I and told us that Afton Realty Trust would do all these things for us if we let them put the road on wetlands. Do you have a wetlands permit? No, we don't. Okay. As far as I know, there was never a wetlands permit. Now, if you go riding by there today, you will see why that road shouldn't be there. Because it's full of water. At that point, I had no water in my cellar whatsoever. When my father built that property, he left a hole in the cement in the cellar because we are right on the water table. He left it there in case we ever needed it. Well, thank goodness he had the oversight to do that, because as soon as they dug that road, I had water in my cellar. I had a well that was ruined by bacteria from the change in the flow of water. And to this day, I have water there. They did nothing about putting anything back. Matter of fact, the whole pile of topsoil is still sitting there. They had agreed to put up a fence that this particular road would cross into the industrial park, which I believe they were supposed to post a bond for and never got posted because it was too high. You need to interject, Diane?
No, I was just going to say, I think my understanding was that there was the Ham property was used as collateral to assure that that railroad crossing would be built. I don't know if the timing is the same period, but that was in lieu of a performance bond. But continue.
Okay.
This is very interesting.
Isn't it? Yeah, I thought you'd be interested. Okay. The Afton will repair any damage to the Heath driveway. It will install to the Heath standards, including bacteria tests and approval, an artesian well, because at the time I didn't have an artesian well. And will install town water. How about that? Way out there, town water. That would be great, huh? Whichever is preferred by the Heaths. Afton will install a crash gate at the New Road, Industrial Park Road intersection after construction access is complete. What they wanted to do was access through that road with the trucks and everything to go to the industrial park. And that road would be considered just an emergency access road that would be gated. I'll go on. They would install a street light. My house would be inspected and photographed as appropriate prior to the blasting of Afton property. Afton Realty Trust, Lester Heath and Claudia Heath agreement, October 25th, 1988. Afton will repair, replace, re-landscape any damage done during completion of the above-mentioned items. All work to be completed within 1 year of planning board approval. Afton requests that this agreement be included as part of the planning board approval. Then there's the whole agreement that I just went through pieces of it, okay?
So that's the question.
And,
So-
yes, Valerie,
In 1988, was that Conway, I'll say, was she, or that company before the planning board with a proposed
Yes.
plan? Okay.
that was, I shouldn't say yes, that was my assumption,
Okay.
that she did. Arthur stopped the whole thing. She cut that road in without any permission from anybody.
That agreement, though, would have been part of some planning board
Correct.
for understanding.
It would be in the minutes of the planning board. Okay? But nothing was done. Maybe she thought I died or something. I don't know. So she came back. I have legitimate concerns. That is, and if you, like I said, if you go by there at any time, you'll see why. Because of that water. If they put that road in, maybe in the middle of her property, I didn't know she still owned it, really, to tell you the truth. But, I mean, it looks like the town owns quite a bit of property there. You can't come in by Charlie's house there, up around that way and go in to your property. You have to go in right next to my house where it's all wetlands. I just hope that the Wetlands Commission gives you a permit to go through there.
Well, there's no plans to go in. Go ahead, Rosie.
There's no plans to
Yes,
build the
Rosie.
road.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Was that contract between yourself and your former husband signed?
Yes,
So that's an agreement. So it was signed, so it was signed and it was an agreement with them.
Correct.
And has she made good on your well?
nothing.
So whether or not,
I'll show you the signature
From Acton Realty Trust in capacity.
Yeah.
That's just the end of it.
yeah, so then basically, she's still legally obligated to do that, whether or not whether or not it's read into the planning board minutes.
Right.
That was just to
She was supposed
satisfy.
to put up a stockade fence and all sorts.
Yeah,
I think that's in,
It's a non-issue.
Right.
I don't believe, well,
It says this was subject to a planning board approval.
no, it
that
wasn't.
work to be
No,
completed.
she made an agreement with this couple.
I know, but that's not what it says on number 9?
says Afton requests that this agreement be incled as
No,
part.
what's the
All
one
work,
above it?
all work to be
work-
completed within 1
Huh.
year of
Planning
planning
board.
board.
And I don't
approval.
know if the planning
What
board
was
ever
approved.
approved, and I.
Could you swing by the town hall and so we can get a copy of that? Because this is the first I've ever seen of that. Do you have a
I
copy?
did give a copy to a man that came, must have thought I was, he came to the site,
Can you get closer to the speaker?
started walking down the road, and I went out of my deck and said, "Don't even think about it." I think he thought I was going to shoot him or something, but he left. And then I got someone from the town, and I can't remember who it was, came, a bigger man. It's not the present, no. It wasn't him, but it was a big man.
I think,
And he asked me for a copy of it, so I gave it to him. And I said, please, every time I go to the town hall and read those town maps, it says there's a road here, and there is
There's
no
There
road.
is no road there.
Thank
That's
you.
correct.
There is no road.
Correct.
and,
Just to be clear, this proposed change gives nobody any permission to do anything without coming before the planning board. And the regulations have changed significantly since 1988. The wetland regulations have gotten more strict.
Yeah.
There would be a whole elaborate process anybody would need to go through to permit anything on these properties. This just gives them the ability to do this type of development there if they choose. But they would be coming before us and probably the Conservation Commission and who knows
Right.
who else.
And
So-
there would be a lot of traffic, whether it's skilled nursing, whether it's not skilled nursing either, it's going to be housing. Correct?
no, it's going to be for skilled, it's going to be assisted living.
Assisted living, who people do drive when they are in assisted living. I know, go by the Pines. They have cars, they drive, People
And that would
come
be part of
there.
any approval process.
Right.
Well, this is very, very,
I'm just trying
I
to
understand your
make
concerns.
my
I
concerns
understand those,
to
yes,
you,
absolutely,
okay?
absolutely.
That's, there's a long ways to go on this before approval.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for your comments.
You're
You must
welcome.
be a good record keeper, because I know I wouldn't have had that from 30 years ago.
Oh, let me tell you, that bottle of wine was lousy.
Thank you. Anybody else like to comment? Mr. Levy, come on up.
I have a response to the overall proposal. So I don't know how long it's going to take to go through each level of the proposal, but it was only a couple of pages. So can you do the proposal and then we can respond to it? Because I don't want to respond to, I have a response to the overall project, so.
What do you mean?
I can do that now if you want,
Proposal.
but I mean,
We're talking
went over the
about the overlay district.
okay, so you're just talking about the overlay, the
That's
whole
right.
thing now?
That's right.
Because I
Right.
thought
No.
Diane said she was going to take one at a time.
Oh, no.
We have
she meant
more
the
than
other-
one
Yeah.
zoning change.
of the zoning
You're
change.
talking about the signs?
Yeah.
Yeah, and also there's some
So
other
assisted
stuff.
living is what we're talking about
Got
now.
it, got it.
So,
So
go
you're
ahead.
done with your presentation for the?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Please fill in with
Yes.
the information you have.
Thank you. This may be disjointed because I have a lot of different pages, but bear with me. I was the member, Mr. Chairman, I was the member of the Black Bear TIF Committee, actually the chair of that in the Economic Development Committee. So I'm pretty familiar with all the past proposals for this area. When the option for the various types of elderly housing were being studied by the EDC and discussed, I personally was under the impression that for New Road, with its clear issues in terms of capacity, size, safety, etc., traffic and whatnot, would be considered for the most low traffic impact, highest value options, i.e. value of land and facility, which would be specialized brain care, dementia, and memory care in Alzheimer's. That all sort of falls into a category. The current proposal, though, includes different varieties of CCRC. And I don't want to do a long dissertation, but I will mention a couple of them. Doing a little bit of research since I got the proposal, one of them is 804 licensing, which is essentially an assisted living facility, which is in some cases a level up from an apartment facility. It includes ambulant or people who have the ability to walk on their own. It has a fairly low need for care, so it is not skilled nursing, for the record. The people that can drive generally go to those types of facilities. Langdon House in Dover has part of their facility is like that. And my father-in-law was actually in there, so I kind of know that the level of nursing and care is pretty low level. Not a bad place to be, but you have to be pretty independent. The 805 licensing has a more higher level of care, and you have to be, they need to have a staff that has the ability to assist people in the event that there's a fire or any kind of evacuation. They have to have suitable staff to support the people to get out of the building. So at the very least, 805 licensing, as far as assisted, which would, from my perspective, would be the low end of the spectrum for this community. Otherwise, you basically have a large apartment. That said, I feel that the land within this overlay district needs to be properly defined. I gave the town the mortgage deed several years ago. In fact, Eric, I think you were on the council, or maybe before that,
Yeah, no, I was on the council.
that I gave it to him.
Yep.
And it wasn't cheap wine that I spent getting that mortgage deed, by the way. And I was hoping that the town was going to enforce it. Last year, and I felt before frankly weighing in on this whole proposal, the parcel should be included for the overlay in the town, and we should really know what each parcel has. The map being used is possibly over 20 years old. In fact, if you look at the map, it shows a paper road that actually crosses the railroad, which I think we all know that the railroad does not have a crossing. Yeah, there's a road there that says Forbes Road, and it kind of cuts through the railroad. I obviously brought it to the planner's attention and the administrator. In fact, I sent a letter to the administrator last August of 2016. And I was just going to read basically Steve's response. I pointed out to Steve at the time that there were obvious discrepancies with the tax map, which was being used for the overlay district that we were talking about at the time, and the fact that the mortgage deed was never properly enforced. So he wrote me back, "That's odd. Here's what we're finding. The lots are as follows. Map 3, Lot 58, sublots 7 through 12 are owned by the town. The former Waugh property, Map 3, Lot 56, 55 are owned by Shearwater." The statement by Steve, and he goes on to say, when looking at the maps, the town owns 31 acres. There's an issue with the tax maps. That essentially confirms that the tax maps were not accurate. So right now, I think we all kind of know that, or some of us know that. In 1980, the subdivision plan was filed as the final plan. It created a paper street, moved some land from one lot to the other. Now, this is from Steve to me. It wouldn't have been an issue since both sides were owned by the same developer. The town filed this as a proper record, which it is not. So that's the administrator stating that. Planning is doing more research. John, meaning our attorney Radigan, said as soon as that's completed, we will fix the map and abate 9.5 acres or 9+ acres to Shearwater, which were being taxed but shouldn't have been since 2013. It's backland, so it's not a lot. I may also have Doucette do a quick survey. We should be unraveling this in the next few weeks. That was August of 16, by the way. Needless to say, the deed of 39.5 acres trumps everything, i.e. that would be the town's. Hold off, Diane, I got a little bit.
I'm hoping you're right.
Okay. Well, I'm reading right from Steve's letter, so if I'm wrong, you can take that up with the administrator, your boss.
No, I'm not planning on doing that, Mr. Levy, thank you.
The proposed ordinance refers to a map. Based on this letter, we know the map is inaccurate. Until the map is cleaned up, frankly, I don't think there should be any action taken. I don't see how we can really assess that. On page 1 of the proposed ordinance, paragraph 2B, overlay district boundaries, it describes the boundaries of the overlay district, and it specifically references the proposal and the proposed district map, which we know is not accurate. Finally, without knowing if the 75 units is feasible, safe for new road access, and given the actual carrying capacity of New Road, which has never been determined, and without knowing how the proposed district was determined, knowing that the map being used is an error, it's hard to understand how the board and the public can really discuss this proposed zoning amendment at this time or take action. So what I have asked, and I spoke with the administrator last week, I was hoping that we could get the information back from the attorney so we would know which parcels are actually the town's, which is Shearwater, and then I would like the time to review and evaluate it. Without having that information, I can't really speak to this proposal. What I can speak to is, I think, assisted living, and I think there might have been a little bit of disconnect because we had a lot of EDC meetings. And sometimes in the meetings you talk about, low impact. We were looking for the highest value of income, obviously, for the town. Sometimes, when you leave the meetings and then you actually transcribe it and put it on paper, it changes a little bit. I had never really envisioned assisted. I had always envisioned and thought we were going to have memory care, skilled nursing, which is significantly different than the assisted that would be allowed under this. And just one last thing. If you read the proposed ordinance, it says assisted or memory care or skilled nursing. So it's not all of them, which may be the best thing at some point. I don't know. I haven't really, really contemplated all the options yet. But presently, assisted is going to bring the least amount of value to the town, particularly if you go with the 804, which I would not recommend. And the highest value is obviously the nursing, the skilled nursing, and brain memory, et cetera, which is right now, unfortunately, there's a need for it. So that is what I wanted to share. I would hope that the board would hold off taking action until these maps get straightened out. And then I'd like to come back and then really give an opinion based on what each lot has for dimensions.
Understood.
Notwithstanding the issues that this nice lady had with her lot, which I'm not sure if that's Shearwater's, quite frankly, or the town's at this point.
Right, understood.
So,
Just so you know, I'm not going to speak for the whole board, but understanding the issue with the lot size, I think tonight's a very productive meeting to get initial feedback, but I personally am not ready to move on this because I think we need to resolve that issue in and of itself, and it'll give people time to, we need to resolve that. That's my opinion.
I
I'm not
was
gonna speak for
hoping,
the whole board.
I would have been working out right now, but that's okay.
This is a better workout
I'm not
for
going to
you.
look that much better, but,
So for the record, my personal opinion,
Okay.
like, I'm not going to speak for the whole planning board here tonight, but I'm not comfortable moving forward. There's an 8-acre discrepancy. I've looked at the plans in Diane's office, and there is a problem. I think there's a title problem somewhere in those parcels, and we need to know exactly what we're voting on, my opinion, moving
Yeah,
forward.
and not to get too far into the weeds, but it was given to Justin Richardson to glean. Honestly, Justin was let go by the town. I frankly think Radigan, I know, is working on it.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, I think once that's clarified, then I think it's really a matter of you folks to figure out where's the most value. Obviously, there are access issues, which were brought up about the bridge, et cetera. Where does the most money come? The 75 units, I think, has to be drilled down. It seemed a little heavy personally to me without knowing what exactly was going to go in there. I don't agree with the assisted on the lowest level in any way. I think,
Yep,
I'd like to
understood.
review it, but I just wanted to make that clear. It's not that I think assisted is bad.
Yep.
I don't think that is what was intended for this area.
And I have a question relative to fault. So in the research, Gary, Mr. Levy, did you see, when you say 805, the higher level of care, but,
Yeah.
because I know with the EDC, we were talking about, it was skilled nursing, assisted living, skilled nursing, not assisted living, independent living.
Yeah.
So is there, is 805 the, and it's not under an RSA, right?
No,
it's
so
something-
realizing that I actually spoke to the owner of a fairly substantial facility today, and she explained some of the differences to me, because
So is there a term that would be assisted, the skilled nursing,
well, the skilled,
assisted living?
I think, and again, I am no expert. I know enough to be dangerous tonight, but I will be up to speed by the next meeting. My sense is 805 has more caregivers available, and I use that term loosely, people that can assist people, help them get up, there's 5 criteria which were annotated in your helping to eat, pills, et cetera, showering, et cetera. Skilled nursing is really, at least from my interpretation, someone who's wheelchair ridden, they need help with their, trying to think of the right things to say.
ADLs.
Bodily functions, things of that nature, getting them potentially out of bed with a lift. That is really skilled nursing. That is where the money is as far as what the cost of the facility, and from tax revenue from the town. And it also has the lowest impact on traffic. Same with dementia. and I'm not locked into anything right now, but skilled nursing, the 805 level, I think, has more people. It can help people who can't get out of a building. And I know that when my father-in-law was in Langdon, living in the apartment, he was kind of on his own a little bit. There wasn't a whole lot of help. Now, they have different levels there, but, and that may be something that's considered here. Maybe there's a percentage of skilled nursing, dementia, and a higher level of assisted. I can't really speak to it because I really wanted to get up to speed, and I was trying to get a sense of where the boundaries were before I went any further. But the 805, I don't believe, is skilled nursing to the level that
That we were looking for under EDC.
Yeah, well, I think what the EDC was looking for, and I'll just quickly close with, I think on 152, there was a consideration of maybe like what a Riverwoods would do, where someone could move into a 55 and up, and they can live their life, and then one needs help, maybe both need help, then they could move into nursing, then they could, God forbid, one person had Alzheimer's or dementia, one could get the help they need, but they could be together, which is sort of the model of Riverwoods. And the access issues on 152 are obviously a little bit different than New Road. And when we did have one proposal, which I'm not going to get into the nuances to it, but we did have a gentleman that came before us when we were on the EDC that wanted to do 55 and up, did not want to do all the nursing and everything because it was costly to do the nursing. But the costly aspect of it, and why it's important, is because that's when you're kind of locked into, that's what we're going to do. If you just build a bunch of apartments and say it's assisted, and for whatever reason it goes south, then you have potentially 75 apartments. And I think the last thing Newmarket needs is 75 more apartments. So I'm just saying, it's a complicated issue. I'm not suggesting the town hires consultants and the rest of it. I do think the land has to be surveyed and people have to figure out what's what. That much I do believe. But I will do the best I can to get up to speed. I will share whatever information I get. Yes,
Thank
Diane.
The classification, the 805, do you have something in writing that we can refer to?
I went to,
Is it a rule or a
It's
regulation?
called 805 licensing, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
I went to, on Grant Road, Tall Pines? What's the
The
name?
Pines.
The
The
Pines,
Pines.
down there, and I spoke to the woman there, and there's two different types. I guess, Diane, we discussed during our committee meetings, 161, which is just, I believe, assisted living with very
Right.
little,
Right.
it has some skilled nursing thrown in there. But HEP 804 and HEP 805. HEP 804 is RSA 159.9.
159.
And 804 falls under Roman numeral 7, lowercase a, 1.
Okay.
In HEP 805 is the more stringent of the two. That is what the Pines is. And that one is HEP 805. 151.2, Roman numeral I, lowercase e, number 2. And it also refers back to 151.9, Roman numeral 7, again, lowercase a, and 2, not 1, like 804. So the restrictions.
Can you just make a copy, or
I'll
can I
make
make a
copies of that.
copy of it?
Yeah,
And
and
that would be helpful.
there is a big difference. There's a
Yeah.
big difference just between 804 and 805, and now you've got even a bigger difference just from 161. So I think it's something that maybe the committee should really
Yeah.
go
no,
back
we
to
did-
the
this is
the
good
We need to look at.
information.
We need to look at. Understood.
Yep, absolutely.
and
Thank you,
like
Mr.
Mr.
Levy.
I didn't
Thank
mean to
you,
go
Mr.
too
Levy.
far, but I think you all
That's
want
fine.
to know what you're doing, get all the background before you pull the trigger, for both areas.
Agreed.
And like Gary said, the value to the town is to what's developed out there and what it can eventually turn out to
Yeah,
be, because.
absolutely. But that's why we're having this public hearing, so we can get this kind of input.
And too, if we just do the assisted living and have just that, like he said, it can go into apartments, and we have, almost 200 units going up in Durham. We have how many homes up in Route 2? I mean, we're really getting saturated in the area.
We're getting old.
Yeah, I know. So,
Oh.
and what Claudia mentioned too has me concerned. She said that bridge was removed. Could we also find out from legal if the railroad has the legal right to remove that bridge? And if that's the case, I mean, we really have to think twice about doing anything there. So I'd like to know if they can remove that. If it had to be repaired and they didn't want to, they could just take it down and put a barrier up.
Mr. Levy, you might have an answer to
One
that.
very quick last, no, I don't have an answer for
Oh.
taking down a bridge, unless you want to get some dynamite. But what I would say is, perhaps when this all gets locked down, as far as the boundaries, maybe we could do a site walk so people can see exactly where this is. Because I know where the Wilson property is. By the way, the Wilson is 28, my understanding is 28 acres and change. John Connery thought it was 20, but it's more like 28. But I think if we had a site walk, as much as I'm not enamored with having ticks all over the place, it might be a useful process, just so people can see the lay of the land.
I'm fine with that.
It's hard to
That's a
do
good
it from the
idea.
map.
Absolutely.
It's a good idea.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you. Does anybody else want to speak to this particular subject? All right. So I guess I would entertain a motion to continue this section to a date certain.
So moved to make a motion that we continue in discussion on section,
I think that gentleman in the plaid
Oh.
shirt is contemplating
He-
saying something.
Would you like to say something?
If you do, just please, feel free, come on.
We want
Don't
to
be
hear from you.
bashful.
Come on up. Just say your name, please, for the record.
Ken Scheitman. I recently moved to the area 3 years ago, and I'm a new homeowner, and I told my real estate agent, I'm like, I want something, because I'm originally from Stratham. I lived on the Guinea Road area practically for my whole life. I've witnessed that area being built up a lot, the middle school in Sterling Hill. And Sterling Hill was a active adult community, which I know is different from what is being proposed, which that was supposed to be a 55 plus, but they recently changed it to accommodate people of younger. I'm not sure of the whole technical, but I know there's a lot of traffic that goes through there and that whole area. But that's not. I mean, I'm just using that as an example. I told my real estate agent I wanted something close, but I want to feel distant. And when I found the new road property, I'm like, this is it. I'm near everything I want to be, and I have freedom. I'm not too close to neighbors. And the traffic is like nothing. And you ask anybody where New Road is that lives around here, and they go, "Where's that?" Well, you drive by it every time. Every time you go into south, but and the times where the work was done on the railroad and the detour was down our road, and I had a friend who lived on 108, and I used to visit him, and I'm like, he's like, yeah, the traffic, and I'm like, we got to taste that last summer with that, and I'm like, I don't want to live here, and that was just a couple days, in a week, and I've, me and my fiance, we frequently walk, go out back and, see the nature back there, and it's wet. It's a wet land back there. And there's a lot of animals that live back there too. It's nice. But it'd just be a shame for something to be built in that area, I know it's not my property, but it's something I like, that I really loved about the area. So,
Well, thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, so Val,
like a, is there a calendar? What do we meet? What's our
when do
next
we meet in
made a-
June?
June, oh my goodness.
Look at
Calendar.
my phone.
Where's my calendar?
It'll be,
13th?
13th.
13th.
13th of June.
Make a motion, we continue the public hearing On the Chapter 32 zoning, Section 32-162, regarding the assisted living overlay district to June
13th.
2017 planning board meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Go ahead, Peter, I'll go after.
No.
Oh, I'm just concerned, I don't know if we're going to have the information back from the town hall with the restructuring of the map.
We may not, and if we
Yeah,
don't,
so you
we
can
will
continue
continue it again.
Otherwise, you have to repost.
I'd rather repost and continue, come here.
I would like to at least get the letter from the attorney so we know where we stand.
Yeah.
And we can always update the map, that's not a problem.
Because I can just see that that's going to take a long time. If he started back in 2016 asking, and here it is 2007.
Well, we have the attention of the attorney. I spoke with him today, and I've actually pulled out some of the plans and started looking at them myself, so we'll get it done.
Okay.
Does it serve any purpose to have the chair of the planning board write Steve a letter?
No.
You're good with
I'm good.
Steve's
It's-
online? and-
Yeah.
Okay.
Radigan's
I'm saying that just
online.
'cause of a
I'd go
comment
pay
that
him a
was made
visit.
No,
about
I-
not-
Bring him a bottle of
Yeah,
wine.
all right.
Cheap one.
we'll have something from Radigan for the June meeting.
Okay,
Hopefully,
good.
we can resolve it.
Will we be able to, if we can get a copy of that agreement too in full, that would be very
That would be helpful. and
educational.
There was something at the Register of Deeds, an agreement, and I'm wondering if it's the same one. And we will check the planning board's records from back then
Diane,
to
who do
see
you
what
want
we
her
can
to give it
find.
to? Who do you want her to give it to, Shia?
Why don't you bring it to me in the town hall? Could you do that, please?
Excellent.
Thank you.
I agree.
Very much.
Okay, motion's made and second, and any further discussion?
I just, the only other thing that I thought would, I don't know if anybody knows, is will that also include the right-of-way for the railroad and how much property the railroad actually owns and sort of what their,
The boundary just goes to the
No, it
railroad.
goes to the
boundary.
railroad
They don't have a
property.
right of way, they
There's
actually
no
own
other,
it fee
there's no other
simple.
right-of-way on the railroad? They don't own any land on either side of the rail?
No,
Whatever they own, they own.
They own a
That's the
swath,
boundary.
yes.
they own the right of way for.
They don't own
the-
any developable land. They don't own,
Are
a
you-
20-acre parcel or something.
Are you
like
thinking
that.
easements maybe?
Right.
Additional easements above and beyond, so I don't,
Right.
I mean, that wouldn't be normal.
No.
They own what they have and then,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Um,
It would be
The
good to
abutter
find
has
out
a
those,
question.
Peter, just
Well,
to
I
know,
mean,
yeah.
there's,
I
so,
don't think there's anything.
So-
They own the right of way.
right, but is that defined on the map too?
Yes,
So you're
yes.
saying that's not a
Hampshire again.
boundary issue, is it?
No, it's not.
No, because the
Oh,
the
hold on a
lot
second.
description references the railroad right of way.
The
That's
railroad
one of the
right-of-way, right.
boundaries.
Go ahead.
Okay, in reference to the railroad,
Yes.
when my father bought that land, he subdivided and sold to Dave Paquette's mother. And these nice people that have been here for 3 years from Stratham, they now are in that property next door to me. We are separated by a swamp. On the other side of their property is a railroad right-of-way that you're probably not aware of. It's on the tax maps, but it's right between theirs and the guy that
Yeah, it's a
left.
maintenance access way, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
it's for the railroad.
yes, to get out to their tracks to service. They need
Correct.
to.
Is
Yep.
that what you were referring to?
I was referring
Yeah.
to anything that we should know about with the railroad. The railroads tend to be old and tricky.
Non-responsive.
Good luck dealing with the railroad companies.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of continuing, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it, it passes unanimously. Thank you for your input, all. We'll go on to the next portion of it.
Okay. Let me just
Go ahead.
Very quickly, number 3, if you recall.
Good night, Mr. Levy.
Good night, Mr. Levy.
Okay.
Good night, thank you for coming out. If you recall, back in, I think it was January, we received a letter from John Radigan, our legal counsel, concerning language that could be added to our zoning ordinance to enhance, if you will, the understanding of what the town's rights are in terms of aesthetic values as part of site plan review. And he recommended that some specific language be added to our purpose section of the zoning ordinance. And he's recommending that we add another purpose statement, number 9, to advance aesthetic values through design and architecture, because the preservation or enhancement of the visual environment may promote prosperity and the general welfare.
Okay, does anybody have any comments on that? Questions? Is nobody from the public? Mike, do you have anything to say
Mike's very much an
relative to
advocate
this?
for this.
Okay.
Is this something that we can vote on and approve tonight?
What's
We
the
could.
pleasure of the board?
That
Absolutely.
particular one you could, yes.
I would like to make them let anyone else wants to.
Go ahead, make a motion if you want.
Make a motion to amend section 32-2 purpose by adding the following as a new subsection 9 that reads as follows. To advance aesthetic values through design and architecture, because the preservation of enhancement of the visual environment may promote prosperity and the general welfare.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Yes, we made progress.
The ayes have it. Okay, thank you. On to the next section, which is the sign and message board section. We have Mr. Mike Hoffman, the code enforcement officer for town.
I'd like to make a motion. Seemed to go pretty smooth.
Exactly. Mike, for those at home, would you just kind of walk through the proposed changes real quickly?
Sure, yeah. I'm Mike Hoffman, the code enforcement officer, and a number of issues have come to bear on our sign ordinance recently. One was a Supreme Court case, Reed versus Gilbert, Arizona, where municipalities cannot dictate message on a sign. We can dictate material, we can dictate design, but we can't actually get down to the nitty-gritty of the words on the sign. So that was important because some of our signs, some of our ordinance allowed certain entities to advertise in certain ways and other entities not to. So we can't do that, according to the Supreme Court, so I suppose we should change that. And we also opened up the door to some problems with some unintended consequences of our ordinance, as even something as simple as a time temperature clock. That's an electronic message center, therefore if you allow one, you have to allow them all. And then we could have all sorts of electronic message centers, which would be remotely controlled, light up signs of some sort, or it could be mechanically.
And we couldn't
changing.
control the message. They could say
They
anything
could control the
wanted.
message, and they can say whatever they want. And we lose all control. And that's been a problem in some other communities in New Hampshire and across the United States. So the recommendation was to remove anything that allowed for some sort of electronic message. And that way you don't have to worry about somebody professing something you may not find all that desirable. Or even in some cases, some people might even consider just offensive, highly offensive. So those things, and then there was something that a sign company brought to my attention, and that was that there was most likely fairly unintentional, but we allowed, by what we had, illuminated signs in all districts except for the M2, which meant all the residential districts could have internally illuminated signs, which is sure not what the intention was, but it's kind of an issue there. We wanted to clean that up. And there are a couple other little ones, and I can go through the red print if you want.
I
Essentially,
think we should have you walk through it quickly, just
Yeah, yeah.
because some people at home that may be watching.
essentially,
don't
we
know.
did need to change we had needed to define electric message board because that was important. We used that term later on, and that is that you can remotely change it or automatically changes. It's not a guy walking out to the end of the gas pumps and putting different numbers on what the price of gas is. LED, we talked a lot about neon signs in our previous ordinance, but today's technology, neon's not really used that much. There are a lot of other lamp types, such as LED style, that can be high intensity, and those probably made a lot of sense to include that technology and regulate that as well. We also had a little bit of an issue with what I sometimes term a perpetual yard sale. It happens every single weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And to me, that's kind of a business occupancy. And so we thought that there should be something about that so that people can't sell whatever it might be 3 or 4 days a week.
Can you just comment, just for people at home, that the decision was to limit that to no more than 4 days per calendar?
Yeah, exactly. We met with the subcommittee of the planning board, and that's really for your debate. To me, I throw all these out just for your debate and, awareness that you might want to think about these things. But that was what the subcommittee felt. 4 days seemed like a reasonable number of times that you can have a yard sale. Don't want to be too restrictive, at the same time, don't want a business set up in an R1 zone. And we kind of go with same theme in some of our illumination standards about flashing and blinking, and we took out that time temperature portion in section 32.123D, going down to E. We actually changed the word from minimized, which is a really hard thing for me to enforce. If plastic shall be minimized, it's a difficult thing. So I like the word shall and prohibited, just real concrete definitions, just because it takes away a lot of argument. There is an exception, which is that material that mimics natural materials, like high-density urethane, is actually most of the most beautiful signs we have are actually urethane, but they look like wood, but they last for many years and look good for a long time. So we actually don't want to prohibit those because those are the most beautiful ones out there. We talked a little bit under H about, however, about a movable sign, and just took the terminology out there about a registered vehicle. We don't need to go down that road. A registered vehicle is a registered vehicle. We don't need to get, that's going into motor vehicle law and out of zoning. It's a registered vehicle. Now, I do believe that, the permanently located vehicle that sits in the corner of a lot that is situated just to look like a billboard, it's appropriate for a land use regulation to have that, so people don't rent a tractor trailer truck, put their business sign on it, and park it on the corner of the lot. That's appropriate. So, in our estimation, as long as that vehicle is moved, is regularly moved, it's not a problem. But if they park it there for 6 months, that's a movable sign being used in lieu, registered or not. And that's done in some communities. I'm sure you've seen it elsewhere.
Newmarket had a big court case over that, a guy parking an oil truck.
Yeah.
They wouldn't give him a sign, so he parked his oil truck with his name on it and phone number and everything, and it was a nasty court battle.
Yeah,
How did
yeah,
it
they
turn
do tend to get nasty.
The city won
The city one?
eventually.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the case.
Yep.
Yeah, it's happened elsewhere, and it didn't end at the end of the court battle either. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
I
can
think it's fair, it's reasonable.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the sign ordinance is really designed for economic development. It truly is to help the downtown prosper, and that's important to all of us, I think. So, along those lines, many moons ago, the Business Association had pleaded for sandwich board signs to be permitted. A previous town administrator said that they would not be regulated, and it was a previous building inspector. I wasn't the guy at the time. And the idea was as long as they're wood and not plastic, they'd be allowed, but it wasn't ever codified. It was just a statement from a town administrator to a building official or zoning enforcement official, and it really belonged, it should be codified and then defined what is exactly allowed. So we looked at Exeter's and Portsmouth's sandwich board signs, and we mimicked the best of them, and essentially said it's going to be this small, it's going to be a chalkboard style, it's going to be wood, it's not going to be plastic with the flyaway letters and things of that sort. So, and if we look at downtown Exeter, which I did, I thought it looked really nice down there, and it is helpful for the business. The businesses love it because they really do feel it helps their business. So,
And more importantly, they have to keep the sidewalks clear.
Yeah, there's
Path of
absolutely,
travel,
yeah,
that's
there's
very
absolutely a clearance
Yes. 48
statement in there.
inches, right?
48 inches.
Yeah, which, yeah,
Is that ADA compliant?
Yes.
yeah, yep,
We checked that.
yeah. And then we ended up going into the size of some of the signs, and one of the unintended situations, we actually permitted for very large projecting signs, one a size that essentially nobody has used, and it would be very difficult to really secure to the building, considering we should be designing this for 100-mile-per-hour winds. It would be through bolting most of these signs, but the sign company actually recommended, she said, you guys might want to change it. Nobody else said it allows for a sign that big, and I actually didn't really realize it until she mentioned it, that, she could have put up a 24-square-foot sign in front of this building, and she said, obviously, that would be horrible, but we think you probably want to fix this, and I agreed with her.
Yeah.
And thought I should bring it to your attention. And yeah, we dropped that down to 8 square feet, which is pretty consistent with what people really have. The other big one was the wall signs, and that we currently allow a 10% wall area, which, as I provided the subcommittee with some examples, most people now are 3 or 4%. Some of them are the wall signs. The Kennybunk Bank is 0.7% of the wall area. That sign that some have thought is pretty big, but it's only 0.7, so they could have gone 10 times bigger or more legally, and that would have looked kind of tough. Jeremy's Pizza is probably the biggest as an example, and his is roughly 9% of the wall area. Just really rough, taking a scale to a photograph. So we felt we should bring that down, and the subcommittee talked about it a little bit, and we ended up saying that it would be 3% of the wall area or 5% with a special use permit approved by a planning board, because sometimes a larger sign can look good. If you do it in a very pleasing way, you guys would have the opportunity to look at it and say, yeah, that looks great, and that's appropriate. And that's, again, it's a little more in keeping with what some of our surrounding communities have. So it's essentially a cleanup of the document, finding whatever errors we found in the last 3 years.
Yeah, lessons learned.
Yeah, exactly.
Does anybody have any questions, comments on the sign? I think we pretty much talked this through quite a bit.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Well, we're going to approve, we'd recommend
Right.
that this go to the town council for
Yeah.
approval, correct?
Yeah.
Second?
Any-
Was that a motion?
Yes, motion.
That was a
To
motion.
modify and update section 32-11 definitions and article signs and changes to appendix, and signs. Or is different.
To pass it to the council
To
for
pass it to the
approval.
council for approval.
Or for deliberation, I guess. That was seconded by Janice. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Hoffman.
Certainly.
Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you.
Appreciate your help on
Yeah,
that.
that was
Thank
very
you.
Thank you.
helpful. Thanks, Michael.
Okay, the next one, Diane?
The
is-
next one has to do with subdivision signs, and one of the changes that was suggested in the exempt signage was that somebody could have a subdivision identification sign not to exceed 12 square feet in size. This is on page 6 of the zoning ordinance, and that would be located at the entrance of the subdivision and would denote the name of the development, and the idea being that it would be outside of the public right-of-way, and it would require approval by the planning board. There was one thing that Mike failed to mention. So in order to implement that regulation or that zoning ordinance, the planning board added some language, or is recommending adding language to the subdivision regulations that we have in effect, which would give a little more detail on what's encouraged and what would be permitted. And under the landscaping section, we're suggesting you add a new paragraph C, and basically states that landscaped entrances are encouraged, plant varieties selected should be hardy, drought-resistant, non-invasive plants, and require minimal maintenance, and that there be a blend of flowering materials to provide year-round display of color and so forth, and that the native plants be the preferred landscape material, plant material, and also that we talked extensively about whether we would allow having signage, let's see, where are we? I'm sorry. We want to clarify that one sign would be permitted at the entrance, not to exceed 12 square feet and 6 feet in height, and would be located, again, within the public right-of-way, and would be, there'd be provisions written into the homeowners association documents or community homeowners association to assure that that sign would be maintained as such. And the planning board discussed having the option of allowing a second sign if it was located on a monument or stone wall within a landscape setting. So that's the language that is being suggested to be incorporated into the subdivision regulations. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I'm not sure we looked at this in compliance with the ordinance. So we're saying that we have the authority as a planning board to permit one sign at the entrance may not exceed 12 square feet in size.
Right?
But yet, if the council adopts the new ordinance, in the R2, R3, and R4 zone, the maximum sign size is 8 square feet. So we'd be in conflict with the ordinance, and we wouldn't have the ability to.
So, or as,
So
no, but that's a specific type of sign. You could have regulations in addition to.
Right, but these are freestanding signs,
Yeah.
which this is a freestanding sign.
Would we want to say that which would be may not exceed the
Or-
permitted square footage by the zoning ordinance, right?
Well, we don't really want to say that, because some of the zones are still going
Yeah.
to allow,
Bigger.
16 or 32 feet.
Yeah.
Not that you'd have a subdivision in the end
Should-
zone.
Should we include this language as a description in the sign ordinance section of it for an entrance design?
We
I think
decided to
we
put it in
put
the
it here,
subdivision
yeah.
regulations.
So maybe the language here needs to be something more,
Generic.
or that it's not in conflict with the ordinance.
Well,
Because it would be 8 square feet in the R2, R3, R4
Okay.
zones.
So if we say
So
may
just
not
take
exceed
out
8
the
square
first-
feet in the R,
just take out the
2 or
first
3 or
sentence
4 zone.
altogether, because it would be
For a subdivision, one sign is permitted at the entrance.
period.
Right,
Subject-
because we're
Right,
allowing
just
whatever
take
they
out,
are.
take out the height restrictions, which are actually part of the zoning ordinance.
Yeah. Okay. And this way here, we're saying that just under subdivision, the planning board requires the approval, the applicant requires the approval of the planning board for the subdivision sign, regardless of whether or not it's allowed in the ordinance.
Correct. So it's not in conflict. That's a good call, Valerie, thank you.
So you're just gonna, for a subdivision, one sign is permitted at the entrance, subject to planning board approval. That's the way that sentence will read.
And then it says, but there's an option for a second sign, so if you had some kind of a monument or something where you wanted to have a sign on both sides, it would be allowed if it's within a landscaped setting and the planning board approves
Or a
it.
stone wall
Or
entrance.
stone wall entrance, or a grandiose waterfall with,
Yeah. Driving by the Gold Group.
no, actually, I was thinking of the
Alrighty.
place I stayed last week in Florida.
What's the pleasure of the board do somebody want to make a motion with, subject to Val's edits?
Yep.
Yes, so I'll make a motion that we amend Appendix A of our subdivision Regulations, section 3.09 landscaping, by adding a new section C as proposed in the public hearing, with deleting the verbiage which may not exceed 12 square feet in size and 6 feet in height.
Is there a second? Second made by Janice. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, passes unanimously. Thank you.
If I could clarify for the board, on the first motion that was made, we're actually forwarding the language to the town council for their adoption, because you don't have the authority to modify the zoning ordinance.
That's what we changed.
Okay.
That was the motion to recommend to the town council,
Yes.
you know.
That
The
was
last
super
time,
simple.
the
last
very
one, but the
first
one
one, we
before-
didn't do that, though.
Because we continued that, because that was the
First one's
No,
continued.
no.
special use permits.
Oh, for the
The one
language
pertaining
for
to
aesthetic,
John.
for aesthetic.
Yes, John Radigan.
Oh.
That's,
didn't
but
do
that's
that.
subdivision, isn't it?
No, it's not. That's under the zoning ordinance.
So do I have to amend that?
We should go back
Just
technically
so
and
Susan
amend that if
has it
that is the
correct
for the
case.
record.
Yes.
Okay, so I would
That's a zoning change, so it
Okay.
has to go to the council.
Okay, so I'd like to amend my original motion of just approving, oh, I lost
The amendment to section 32.2.
Purpose.
32.2 and send it to the town council for approval.
Right.
I need a new second.
Second, new second.
Consideration.
Second?
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay. The ayes have it. Motion passes again unanimously. All righty, moving forward. Thank you for all that. New and old business, I have nothing. Does anybody have any?
Yeah, we're on the agenda.
We have
So
a,
Reappoint Peter?
Yeah, I was gonna do him
Yeah.
next after, oh, I see what you're saying.
That is new and old
That is
business.
new and big, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm reading it. I have it right here. All right, new business, is to appoint Peter Nelson to the SRPC.
it's actually to recommend that the town council appoint him to the SRPC. Sorry.
Right. To recommend the town council
So
to
moved.
appoint Peter. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Congratulations. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter, for getting this.
All right, does anybody else have any new business or old business they would like to discuss? Diane?
At the end of April, I submitted to the Stratford Regional Planning Commission a grant proposal to update our stormwater regulations. There is a new stormwater management ordinance that's being recommended by the Seacoast Watershed Coalition, which kind of reflects sort of the state of our thinking on stormwater. And we have the opportunity to apply, well, it's like an $8,000 grant to be able to update the regulations. The former regulations, I think we worked on in 2008, and there's been quite a few changes since then. And of course, this is all part of the town's responsibilities under the MS4 program, which is an EPA program that town council has recently voted to appeal. And there's a group in New Hampshire that's moving forward with appealing that permit.
Appealing what?
The MS4 permit.
Okay.
That was approved in January, right before the new administration came into place.
Yeah, he signed an executive order, didn't he, that you didn't, the states didn't have to adhere to that?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not familiar
Well,
with that.
we're appealing the-
Sorry.
we're
We're
appealing the
appealing the
enforcement of
MS4. The MS4 program, which is which is a New Hampshire permit.
Okay.
And so these are going on in two parallel tracks. I just wanted to let you know. But meanwhile, I think it's time that we looked at stormwater regulations. We have the opportunity to get like $8,000 worth of technical assistance to do that.
Sure. When will we know? Is that this fall sometime?
Quickly. I got the impression that they were going to make decisions sometime in early May, so.
Oh, okay, good.
And a question, Diane, I see a lot of markings downtown, especially up near the wall garden there, there's markings on the street part and actually up on the grass. Is there gonna be digging in the downtown area there, or they?
Aware of.
Yeah, there's big red marks there.
Don't know.
Oh.
I think they
We-
did dig safe before they put that sign up. Did you see the sign that went in?
Oh, okay. Which sign was it?
The work, construction zone ends here, and construction
Okay,
zone.
maybe
Oh, they would
that's-
have to
Was this
dig
for the
that,
state,
absolutely.
the state
Okay.
project, the?
And I'd also like to
North Main
say
Street
that I
project?
love the signs that were put up, welcome
Yeah.
to Newmarket.
I was gonna say,
Those
that
look
was one
really-
of Mike's initiatives. He worked closely with Steve
They
Fournier
look
on that.
really, really
He
nice.
met with the sign people and made sure that the design was something that
They're
would be
perfect,
compatible.
they're just the right
He did a
size, I
great
love the
job.
color.
Yep.
They're really, really nice, I appreciate that, it looks
So there
good.
was some new signs going in for Heron Point, too,
Yes, that's right.
right? Which looked nice, I saw them in Mike's office.
Did they, yeah. I don't think they've been installed yet.
No.
Yeah.
So
And I'd like to
there'll be
remind everybody that we're having the gardeners are having a plant sale at the library on June 10th, so.
That's tomorrow. Oh, that's tomorrow, May
June
10th.
10th,
June
please.
10th.
I'm losing my mind.
May 10th.
I hope it's warmer in
I'm
June.
getting old. Jesus, bro. Okay, anybody have any committee reports?
I'll just mention that the Stratford Regional Planning Commission submitted the next round of projects for the 10-year plan, and I think there were 5 from Newmarket on there, so I can actually, I'll circulate that. You probably have a copy of that, right? I mean, I can make a one-pager.
If you
Trying
could,
to
yeah.
improve that overall process, so.
Yeah,
that-
if you could, and then we can send it out to
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah, that'd be good. Diane, do you have anything?
No, I'm all set for now. Thank you.
Anybody else has nothing else?
Did anyone go to the OEP conference?
I did not.
Len, you didn't go this
No.
time?
We're out of town. It was April vacation.
Yeah.
Want a motion to adjourn?
Is there a second?
Second.
It's
All in
Janice's
favor?
That's her job.
favorite thing to do.
Thank you.
Very quiet. We don't have to repeat
Amy, you look like you got some sun. Did you go someplace warm?
No, I think this is just from, right before I came here, I was standing out at the baseball game in
still
the
on.
cold, and I think
Cold
I
air
got like
outside?
the, you know, the, like
That's how
the,
I get when I'm outside, I get red.
so.